All right, I thought I would give some political advice to Donald Trump. Um, Now, I recently saw the Lotus Eaters, Carl Benjamin Sargon of Akkad's media group. Rookie kind of people. They're not too rookie, but they're not in the game as long as Sargon. Talking about the people on food stamps threatening to loot if they're cut off and so on. Now, if you cut off wholesale the food stamps for 25 million people, you can expect some major chaos. And some people are saying that they think that like the Democrats will have egg on their faces because the riots will be mostly in Democrat areas and so on. But Trump should be aware that many of his voters are Christians. And Christians particularly have a certain don't use the poor as political pawns kind of approach. And then there's the whole 3 meals missed until collapse of civilization thing that the Romans came up with. And the right wing likes to talk about classical values and so on. Well, that's a classical observation. And then they talk about bread and circuses, but really food and entertainment, something to give meaning to your life, are the basics. And when you're the president, unfortunately, the shit rolls on your shoulders when you're not playing ball at all in regards to fixing the problem of the poor going hungry. And the looting that results from the poor being hungry is going to be on your shoulders. It's called a food riot. So, my suggestion to Trump is, if you don't want to lose a lot of support from the Christians, who are a huge part of your voting bloc, send your politicians to Congress so that they at least show up, and they can totally vote down whatever Democrat bill involves budgeting for Obamacare or something like that, even if it involves budgeting for SNAP, food stamps, as long as you propose a budget for SNAP in the military and maybe ICE as well. Things like that. That is purely for those things. The basics, the very necessary backbone, bare minimum basics of keeping the country going, basically. Let the Democrats propose the frills, the pork barrel, and let you propose the bare bones basics to navigate and negotiate and proceed with life being as normal as possible. And voting down their frills as you counter-propose the bare bones basics, only the good things. That is acceptable. But I'm telling you, what is not acceptable is to not even look like you're trying to alleviate or avoid food riots and people going hungry who are on disability and so on and so on. That is going to alienate a lot of Christians. A lot of them. And those are the primary voting bloc of Trump, basically. Do not use the poor suffering as your political pawns. That is a huge mistake. There's no getting around it. And to not even look like you care about resolving that is even worse. If you have plausible deniability and you're at least showing that you're almost willing to fund basic food stamps and military and ICE and FBI maybe, or something that's like your federal enforcement agencies of your will, that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to. You can totally shoot down the Democrats' bills on illegal aliens getting health care. That's fine. But just counterpropose funding the basics that are necessary for the continued well-being of the society, at least at a minimal level. If you're not even trying to do that, your own voters are going to look at you and go, "Holy shit, he's ugly," because they're going to know the game you're playing. Someone said, "Hold fast, the Democrats are going to fund illegal health care for illegal immigrants," and it's like, no, you just shoot it down and counter-propose a different budget. And if they don't vote for the pure backbone, bare bones budget that satisfies the basics, then you can say they're doing pork barrel politics and they'll have egg on their faces. But if you don't even try, then a lot of people are going to go, "Oh, he wants it to be this way." And that's going to be unforgiven by the Christians because you're using the poor as a political pawn. And God knows they have it hard enough. And the Christians who primarily vote for Trump are not going to forgive that kind of behavior. They're not going to forgive it. There's no Machiavellianism. There's no realpolitik. There's no 4D chess that can outmaneuver this basic fact on this one situation. You cannot be Pontius Pilate or Pilate and say, "I wash my hands of it." You have to make the innocent judge. You have to judge them innocent and release them, or else you are the guilty one. This is just a fact. There's no Nietzsche outmaneuvering it. There's no Darwinianism outmaneuvering it. America is a Christian nation, and those are Christian values to take care of the poor. And if the government's not willing to do it, then the individuals will have to step up and do it themselves. And there's going to be a lot of points of failure. And unfortunately, what that means is the person who's in charge, so the president, and the governing party in Congress is going to lose out fairly heavily. Because it means you don't even act like you care at all. And that's unforgivable to a Christian on the poor's behalf. So, barring the Democrats doing something absolutely insane, Trump is basically going to lose a lot of support doing this. They're going to go independent or something like that, possibly. That's my judgment, that's my guess, and so on. Trump's going to lose in 2028 or something like that if he doesn't at least pretend to want to solve food stamps in the military and ICE and maybe the FBI as well. And their budgetary issues for the year or 4 years or whatever it is, the fiscal period and so on. You can totally shoot down illegal immigrants getting health care. That's fine. But you have to counterpropose the budget and so on. And you have to show up to Congress to make it look like at least like you're not the one stalling it while the poor are suffering. Because guaranteed, it's a losing proposition to shut down the government and be okay with shutting down the government in any way, shape, or form when the people are going hungry and the government has the means to feed them. That is not decisive. That is not intelligent. That is not foresight. That is not helpful. That is not compassionate. That is not wise whatsoever. Trump needs to rein his politicians in and get them into Congress to at least show up and say, hey, look, we're proposing feeding the poor with SNAP and so on. And so on. You know, because a lot of Christians are going to look at the food riots, and a lot of people are going to remember that 3 meals missed before collapse of civilization, and they're going to look at who's in charge of the government, and they're going to say, okay, Trump was. He's the president, he's the House, Democrats are the Senate, and so on. So you have to tune this, and you have to behave a certain way, or else it's going to backfire. Because all the Democrats need to do is get someone who's like John Fetterman or something, and then John Fetterman's going to carry and sweep the entire election if he gets in charge. Because he's not using the poor as a political pawn. Like, you don't understand just how serious this is electorally, I think. You know, for Christians. You know, longtime Christians don't look at this Deus Vult meme, glowing eyes, bass, Giga Chad, stone sculptured abs, kind of statue David kind of thing, and go, oh, that's my jam and that's all I am, the aesthetics. They look at the care for the poor part of it, which is a huge part of Jesus's work, right? Like, it's a huge part of Jesus's work. You know, and that's one of the reasons why they say Jesus was a socialist, and he's not. But you can at least understand why people would say it and think it, because he's doing what the socialists claim to do. And if Trump abdicates caring for the poor, then a lot of Christians are going to defect to the Democrats if they just have someone who doesn't rib on Christianity all the time, and proposes some mild social programs, and keeping that going and so on. Yeah, you have to do what I said, basically, or else it's going to backfire. Big time. No one likes people that use the poor as political pawns. You might say, well, the Democrats are going to look like they have egg on their faces more than Trump, but you can bet that Trump's mean-spiritedness in regards to being willing to do that himself is going to count for him against him majorly in the future. You know, it's not going to look pretty for Trump, no matter how unpretty it looks for the Democrats. And Trump is the president and the House, whereas Democrats are just the Senate, and Trump is the judges. And, you know, Trump has to ask himself really honestly and really sit down and think, you know, is it worth pissing off Democrat-run areas with the food riots in a way that people can tell is mean-spirited and sort of domineering in a sense, because it doesn't need to be that way. Because I offered the alternative method of doing it, not give in to Democrats, but sort of reject and then counter-propose something more basic and functional. If Trump doesn't do that, then it's an indication that he's playing politics with the poor, as well as the Democrats. And when Trump loses the luster of his for all Americans bravado, he's the loser, and the MAGA project is the loser. And the Democrats will have their base that is loyal regardless, and they'll also be able to point and say, look, under Trump's watch, the poor suffered and so on. And the Christians will tend to gravitate towards the Democrats as long as they don't propose an insane jihadi communist. And John Fetterman does exist. And it's 3 years until the election, so they might be able to find someone who's kind of like John Fetterman without the stroke. And the only thing that could save Donald Trump from election defeat, if this carries forwards and people clue into this possibility and so on, if Donald Trump doesn't do what I said, basically, is if the Democrats end up being worse, Donald Trump MAGA might win despite this if they don't reject and then counter propose or show up and propose while the Democrats don't show up. But they're not going to win because of it. It's going to weaken them. And that's not something I think should happen. So this is just my instantiation or views, but I would definitely consider them grounded, because there's bound to be a lot of Republicans too who have been on food stamps before on some level and so on. Not everyone who votes for Trump is super successful. Many of them have had times when they've been needy and so on. And the cessation of food stamps in between jobs and stuff like that is going to be a disaster. And ultimately, as president and the House and the judges, top leader, basically, Donald Trump has the most responsibility of any party or group or individual over that situation. So he needs to step up and show that he's at least trying to fund the food stamps thing and the military, maybe ICE, maybe the FBI as well. You know what I mean? Those kind of rough positions of like things that are vital to the MAGA movement federally, and the continuing processes of management of society at a very fundamental level. Or else Trump is giving up victories that he can't afford to give up, probably, unless the Democrats are so insane they make themselves even worse and worse and worse, so that it's a victory despite screwing up, not a victory because he's ignoring it. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, then you don't understand Christians. You don't understand the Christian compassion. You don't understand the Christian calling to serve the poor and so on. Maybe some of the younger men and the epic-based, glowing eyes, statuesque figure of David, Christians don't understand this, but all the real Christians really do understand this. It's not going to go well for whoever fumbles this, and at least it doesn't even make it look like they're trying to help the poor out. And the socialists can make hay out of this, and a lot of people really don't want the poor to suffer because they know they could be poor at some point in the future, because the economy is not doing that great. And if you're mean-spirited about it, you can make it all about black people chimping out and stuff like that, and how they're all welfare sponges and so on. But ultimately, That's not going to fly with the Christians. That ain't going to fly with the Christians. And that is Trump's majority bloc. Trump is doing something with his inaction and his bad optics that is going to absolutely fuck him with the Christians. There is the statement, he who shall not work does not eat. But they're talking about the people who can work. And I don't think anyone thinks that being on food stamps when you can't buy junk food is a very good position to be. I don't think that many people, honestly, are saying to themselves, ha, good for those people on food stamps running out of it. You might get the occasional mean-spirited individual, but most Christians, the majority of Trump's voter base, aren't going to let that slide. They're not going to support that. Yeah. I would be careful if I were Trump, and I would at least make the optics look like you're trying to fix the SNAP running out and the military running out and maybe the FBI and ICE as well. And, whatever other organizations are that important. Maybe not even FBI. Maybe FBI. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about these things. Let someone else guess that. But SNAP and military, at least, need to be funded. The rest is just whatever.